You're watching the Blockchain Interviews, hosted by Dan Weiskopf. Each episode features interviews with leading industry experts so that viewers can have a deeper understanding of today's quickly evolving blockchain marketplace.
Today in the Blockchain CEO interview series, we were very fortunate to have Tyrone Ross on the show from Onramp Invest. Tyrone, thanks very much for being with us today. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. As usual, you know what's coming. It's a pleasure to chop it up with you. I look forward to this.
As the ETF professor, I'm always about educate, and you've got this whole this slang, educate before you allocate. It's so apropos, especially when it comes to dealing with independent advisors. We're in the ETF think tank on a constant basis. We're talking about that, and thanks very much for emphasizing education on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, it's fundamental to everything, right? And it's funny, educate before you allocate was just, I don't even remember when I said it for the first time. That's trademarked, by the way, for all y'all out there. So,
oops, I'll have to remember that if I use it.
That's trademarked. But yeah, it was true. The other thing I say is education never goes into a bear market, right? So no matter what, you should always be learning through and through. So these are things, little quips I've been saying on the internet, and it's so funny, like it kind of catches on when you start a company. So I'm glad folks are seeing that. And at the end of the day, we need more education in space because it is so early.
Yeah, and education, I'm also told, it can be very expensive. And to your point, if you're not educated into a bear market, it's going to be really expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I'd like to make a point about is you're really constantly emphasizing not underbanked, but underserved. And I did my master's thesis on pawn shops. Talk to us a little bit about that marketplace, because when I was traveling around 25 years ago in Texas at pawn shops, these are really hardworking folks who are underserved, right?
Yeah.
How does, blockchain and Bitcoin and crypto change that marketplace?
So I think one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is because I was, raised in a home that had to deal with the alternative financial system, if you will, which are pawn shops and check cashing places and all these other things. And what you realize is, if you look at the sheer numbers, there's more pawn shops and check cashing places than Starbucks or dollar stores, because it's a need, it's fulfilling a need. And one of the things that those of us in traditional financial services like to do is damn those services. But the truth is, folks need them. Why? Access to money now. I need my money now. I can't afford to put it in the bank and wait T+2, T+3, whatever it is. We also don't have a real-time payment system in this country. So all I remember is my mother running around in the car crying, trying to find the next check cashing place to cash a check or to get some cash right away with some items that we had in the house, because there was no account. And if you do have an account, it's expensive to have an account and not be able to fund it properly. And also, again, how long it takes money to settle. What I need everyone to understand is Bitcoin, Big B, the blockchain, the technology, is gravity of social justice. It is pulling financial services closer to folks that have never had it before. Well, Tyrone, what do you mean? Allow me to explain. For no other reason, right? If Bitcoin has done nothing, it has just shined this big light on the chasm between the haves and have-nots. And why? Which is these dislocations in financial services, in banking, in capital markets that allow those that have to have more, and those who do not have to get more of what they don't have taken away from them, right? So folks always say, oh, well, the system is broken. No, the system isn't broken. The system works well for those who know how the system works, right? If you speak the language of money, you and I just happen to be talking about crypto right now, but we can go so many different ways in finance and do a podcast on that: real estate, gold, ETFs, bonds, cash, whatever, because we speak the language of money. We are in the 0.0001% of people who are absolutely money fluent. So what Bitcoin does is now shines this light on, oh, we don't have a real-time payment system. Oh, there are, 15% or whatever the number is now. I venture to say it's more of folks that are what we deem unbanked or underbanked, right? When you look at the Black community, it's upwards of 25% or more. In the South Bronx, almost half of the people there unbanked, right? And there are banking deserts in the United States of America. Why? It makes no sense. So I think what Bitcoin, the blockchain, the technology is doing is just shining a light on that and showing the ability to send money peer-to-peer, real time, no bank, don't have to worry about anything. And also what Bitcoin has done has allowed everything that we are jumping up and down about now, NFTs and DeFi and everything else, without the mothership, if you will, of showing the possibilities of the ability to bring the 1.7 billion people into the market that have been left out. Financial redlining is what I call it. It now is evident that there are so many people left out, but now we have an opportunity for them to opt in exactly where they are. That's a very powerful thing.
It is, and I think you often speak about it as a freedom, right? Bitcoin is about freedom.
Yep.
And I think too often people with tons of money just look at it as a way to speculate. And maybe there's truth to that, right? But it's far bigger. This is a global phenomenon. And I'm encouraged by what's happening on a regular basis. El Salvador is a perfect example, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you saw what Blockstream is doing now, right? They're gonna start issuing bonds, right? And anyone that has, $100 can be a part of this bond. Like, this is something that you can't, you can go to any inner city and ask them, hey, when's the last muni bond you bought? Right? I don't know nothing about a municipal bond, right? So now this is something that is going to allow, they're going to take that money and then use that to fund the mining from volcanoes to mine this, like all of these things. Yes, it's freedom, it's accessibility, it's inclusion, it's possibility, right? All it is it's this engine or this mathematical equation for abundance, if you will. So it's just really cool that it's breaking apart a lot of the value that have been siphoned, right? And just sent to so many, where now we're able to break that apart. So it's cool to see what's happening here for sure.
So
long way to go.
So you're the CEO of Onramp. Talk to us a little bit about the other side of the Tyrone Ross, who's leading a company, right?
Yeah.
With Eric Irvin, of course. How do you create the culture? How do you speak to the advisors, and what exactly is Onramp?
So let me start off by saying this: no idea why Jack Dorsey wants to be the CEO of two companies simultaneously. He's an absolute nut, because I can tell you right now that it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It challenges every bit of you. It challenges your strengths and your weaknesses. And I'll kind of handle your question in that way. So one of the things that we knew, Eric, again, I joke with you all that are ETF lovers, right? I call you all the ETF mafia, but Eric is a brilliant mind like you all. If you look at all of the ETF folks, you guys see this clear as day, right? But Eric is very much a product mind. He's brilliant. He could build anything. And when we got together, and again, we were friends first, and we weren't thinking about starting a company together at all. But our strengths and our weaknesses line up perfectly, right? The things that I want to do that he doesn't, and vice versa, his strengths versus mine, his weaknesses versus mine. So when we came together to start this company, one of the things that we wanted to prioritize is, one, people over products. We wanted everyone to be a part of Onramp, to create value for themselves, to give them opportunity, to allow them to grow, to really be in a realm where they can challenge themselves and bring together all these awesome ideas that they may not have been able to do in another environment. The second thing is, we wanted people who were all across the spectrum: traditional finance folks, crypto hippies like myself, financial advisors, folks who knew nothing about finance or crypto, but we were all going to hunker down and learn together. And we had this thing that we say at Onramp, one rope, right? We all pull on one rope no matter what. That's our source of truth, is pulling on that one rope every day. Don't let go of the rope, no matter what. So we created this culture where it's all based on that, just one rope. Every decision that we make, everything we do is in the best for Onramp, not me, not anyone else. We're all here to see this through. To that end, what's so really cool about it is we actually run Onramp like the blockchain, right? And I've mentioned this before in some pieces that I put out of how we run our meetings, how we structure the company, right? How we try and achieve consensus. By the way, consensus isn't fact, right? You can have consensus on something that's utterly wrong, but we achieve consensus, and consensus may mean, okay, well, I may not necessarily agree with all of the transactions in this block, right? Or decision has been made, but I got to keep pulling the rope. Mind, block, next block, right? So we do that, right? Stopping, pausing every 10 minutes in meetings to go, all right, we good here? We all on the same page? If not, right, let's not go on until everyone is clear. So all of these different ways of what we try and embed the culture of crypto into what it is that we're doing. And as I addressed the team at our all hands this morning, we'll create value, we'll unlock value, enterprise value, will make, VCs a lot of money, and our investors, right? Shout out to Rosa, right? All the folks in, make the money, but we want to put more back into the world than we take out. So we'll create a lot of value, but we'll also help child hunger and homelessness and poverty and all of these things, which is near and dear to my heart, financial education. So that's the culture of Onramp. Power, passion, purpose, intent, appreciation, gratitude. Those things matter. What Onramp is, though, is seeking to unlock what we believe is the next $1 trillion to $2 trillion of value of market cap in the crypto space, which is to come from RIAs, wealth managers, if you will, not asset managers. And I always tell folks this: break out RIAs from that institutional money's coming in. It's totally different, right? Because RIAs are so segmented, the space is so large, at last count, 113 trillion, right? You have 28,000 advisors, almost half of which are SEC registered. You have 330,000 investment advisors. All their clients own it, by the way, right? And if you look at 90 billion accounts just between Coinbase and Robinhood. So the whole thing with Onramp was to solve all of the problems that I had as an advisor working with young clients who owned millions of dollars of crypto. I couldn't see it because they had it away from me. Couldn't bill on it because they had it away from me, right? Couldn't buy or sell because I couldn't custody. All they wanted was advice, right? And what we realized was there were three things we needed to do, which is the acronym EAT, which we call, and you've seen a lot, Onramp Academy, right? Education, access, two ways. One, the ability to allow an advisor to go directly to a qualified custodian to buy on behalf of their client, and also showing the advisor the whole ecosystem of held away, right? 20 to 40% traditionally of a client's portfolio is held away. I venture to say in crypto, it's probably double that. So we want to show advisors that. And then the T is tools, data, information, real-time pricing data, everything from the DeFi ecosystem. We want to pipe that into the advisor's workflow, their CRM, their portfolio management software, right? And their financial planning software. So that's exactly what Onramp is. We're described as an iPaaS platform, integration platform as a service. We're not a TAMP, we're not an SMA, we're not a fund. We are the rails. We are the guts connecting the legacy, advisor wealth stack with the whole crypto ecosystem.
So dumbing it down, if I have a client or 20 clients who I find have Bitcoin accounts at Coinbase, as an example, you can connect those accounts. Now you know why sometimes they're giddy and sometimes those clients are sad, perhaps.
Right.
And
right.
you can help them size the position or rebalance the position, or at least have the dialogue that is so critical on a planning basis.
Yep, 100%. And at the end of the day, this is what this is all about. I always say this. I think we need to be empathetic to what advisors have to go through, the regulatory hurdles, all of these things, especially if you're SEC registered, Form CRS, your ADV, right? Exams, policies and procedures, all these other things, but nothing should stop you from having a conversation with your client, right? And I talk about my core four: risk tolerance, investor policy statement, financial plan, estate plan. Those are it, right? If you stay there in your circle of competence and helping the client achieve their goals, Mr. and Mrs. Client, well, Mr. Client, when we first brought you on, you were a 4 on the risk score. Mrs. Client, you were a 6. Dogecoin is a 98. What happened, right? Like, where did you come across Dogecoin? Why is that so important to you, right? So that it's framing that conversation. That's what we want to arm advisors to have.
And you often say, sizing matters, of course, and it's the equivalent of a meal, right?
Yep.
That's how and it may be an expensive meal, right? But I like that analogy because it's your discretionary income that you're using. It's a one-time event. Maybe it's gone, and that's
Yep.
okay. But you know what? Maybe it becomes a Ferrari over time. But
Yep.
you started out small, and I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So changing the subject back to the financial advisor, what other things should the financial advisor know when they're taking on this responsibility? Obviously, maybe their ADV should be updated,
Yeah.
or,
Sure.
what are the other challenges like D&O? I mean, is that like a challenge?
Yeah. Yeah. D&O, E&O, right? Trying to get an insurance provider to actually understand what it is that you're trying to do. And a lot of E&O and D&O providers are, again, they lack education as well. So the bar is high in terms of what they want you to prove in terms of if you are going to a qualified custodian, not having custody, making sure the wallets are segregated, so on and so forth, and being able to demonstrate that. And also, again, if you are taking custody, how you're doing that. That's part of it. The other one, yes, updating your ADV, right? With just like you would with anything else, with the language of what you're actually doing, that you're using Onramp, what you plan to do, and again, if you are SEC registered, 110 million or more, form CRS, need to update that. Most important thing though, I mentioned this often, is the risk alert that the SEC put out for investment advisors. It gives you the whole gamut of things where the SEC just basically said, look, you guys really suck at this. Here's what we want you to do, right? Valuation methodologies around pricing, policies and procedures, books and records, custody, all these things. They want you to check all of those boxes. Super important. What's really important though for advisors to understand is where it gets tricky is billing and pricing, right? Pricing, right? And we're dealing with this now with a very large RAA with some gargantuan news that'll be coming soon. The chief compliance officer asked a question that literally is almost if she pulled it right from the risk alert. We're charging this. We have to be able to show, based on what we're accessing, how we value those assets and thus how we charge on them. There's not a lot of advisors in the country that can do that, right? And the compliance officers need to save the advisors there, but they have to be very well aware of how to do that. So I think that's one of the pitfalls that advisors get caught up with. That's pricing. Billing is a whole separate animal because billing quarterly in advance on a highly volatile asset, probably not a good idea, right? Like in arrears, right? Not probably the best either. So your pricing and billing need to match up, right? And if you look at it in traditional world, that's where a lot of advisors get caught up anyway, because the fee agreement and the billing doesn't really match up. And there's a reason why when you go into Onramp and you go to open a new account, we ask you to upload your fee agreement. That's, it's for us, but it's more of a CYA for the advisor to let the client know and be transparent. This is what I'm charging you on your crypto. The SEC wants that broken out. What are you charging on the crypto? Forget the traditional stuff, right? You're wrapping it at 1%, great. What percentage of that is the crypto? So there's a lot of nuance here, which is why I hate the tweets where every time Bitcoin makes a new high, fire your financial advisor if they haven't put you into Bitcoin. It's like, you clearly don't know our business, right? Like, it's not that easy, Now, advisors will get fired, not because they didn't put a client in Bitcoin. They'll get fired because they've been calling it tulips since 2013 or whatever they found out about it. And there's a clients just want an advisor to have an opinion, right? And I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm here to open them though. And the clients want you to have an opinion, an informed opinion, whether you pro or con. And I really don't care if folks are pro or con, but if you give good reasons, like I just mentioned, why you're not doing it as a firm, that's smart. But you tell the clients, listen, we're reading about it, we're learning. We ain't doing nothing on behalf of you yet, because we ain't gonna get fried, right? For a 1% allocation, right? And we're not really clear on all these things. So there's a lot of hurdles for advisors to cover And one of the things that I was talking to the CFA Institute about it this morning, had conversations with the American College. We want to build a designation for the entire industry, but it's not going to be, oh, sit here for 4 hours and you get you get a little sticker, right? I voted, right? Like, it's not that. It'll be a very robust designation that the industry will have to go to, but it should be, I believe there's 3 layers to it. First layer is just how to have client conversations. I could give a whole seminar on that. Just client conversations / practice management.
Sure. Second
one is how to actually embed it in your practice, right? And again, you get into valuation methodologies and, preparing your practice for that, and having a conversation on the non-custodial held away. And then the last is true advisory, right? And brokerage, if you will, acting on behalf of the client, actually buying, selling, rebalancing, doing all of these things. There's layers to that. And I think that knowledge base takes a very long time to build up. I've been doing this full time for 6 years. I still can't keep up. I do crypto 24/7, 365. So all I do, and you cannot keep up with it. So what we're trying to do at Onramp is simple. Just snatch the future, bring it back to advisors, make it really simple for them to be able to take what they need to do what they do every day. Just be a trusted fiduciary for your clients. Have a conversation. If it makes sense, great. If it don't, at least let them know you're open and you're aware of what's happening here, because it is changing everything in real time.
Yeah, no, we get a lot of questions about crypto, of course, right? And one of the key questions that we always get is, what should I be reading? What's your answer to that? Is, where are the greatest resources for information on how to learn?
Yeah. So I think I got a shameless plug here on Onramp Academy, but I think one of the things that I've always done, and I told people is, it's funny, I should get some royalties at this point, is Crypto Assets by Chris Bernitzky and Jack Tater. I've been talking about this book for the longest time. Heresy, I know, but I think it's going to be the intelligent investor of the crypto space. So I encourage every advisor or anyone listening, Crypto Assets is the crypto Bible, right? That's where it starts. Learn how Jesus walked on water, right? And once you start there, then there's some other books that you can read, right? The Bitcoin Standard, which is a really good book overall. There are a lot of resources out there like YouTube, the Andreas Antonopoulos. There's no one in the world who explains anything as clearly as he explains crypto. No one. Like, he's just that good. Go to his YouTube page, hit play, and just let it run concurrently. He's brilliant. And then there, for advisors, I think, and just folks that are looking to learn your coin metrics, there's so many good newsletters. I get 1 million newsletters, but coin metrics, Delphi Digital, Glassnode, and a good site called casebitcoin.com, where you can go and really start to learn. A16Z has wonderful podcasts. I have a podcast called On Purpose. Shout to that. Shout out to my CoinDesk family. On Purpose is a podcast that, by the way, this episode that I have coming up with Jeff Garzik is, if you don't know Jeff Garzik, look him up. He's one of the first 3 core developers of Bitcoin, like actually had back and forth with Satoshi. Like that type of, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
So he knows who he is?
Yeah, well, yes.
He knows who Satoshi is?
100%. Well, no one knows for sure, but like actually going back and forth with the person. But that's the one thing that he said, as they were engaging with who or whatever the hell it was, the person was never known. But when he said something so profound, is that because we didn't know who it was, we had to focus on the code, right? And because we had to focus on the code, that's what makes Bitcoin so powerful. But yeah, like literally, like they're super early. One of the first people, he also said, and again, I feel comfortable repeating this because he said it on the podcast, he's given away 15,000 Bitcoin. Do the math on that. 15,000 Bitcoin, right? So my podcast, again, is geared for advisors, but there's, we're starting to talk to, and open it up to just broad education. Jeff Garzik, Ray Youssef, a lot of awesome folks have come on. So that's where I would start. So from the academy to my podcast is the bookmarks, and then in the middle, you have everything else I mentioned.
Wow, that was super helpful. Listen, you for years you've been really focused on social media as well. And I think you're
Mhm.
most known for Twitter.
Yeah.
Now that you're a CEO, I don't know. I mean, you don't seem to be as active on Twitter, or maybe I'm off on it. Maybe you've got other
Yeah.
things distracting you.
Maybe.
You know, give us a little bit of feedback on social media. How does one really build out a presence like you have? And is
Yeah.
Twitter still your favorite?
Twitter is still my favorite. I am a junkie. I can't tweet as much as I want to, but I do. It's how we built Onramp. I believe at last count, I think almost 90% of the employees at Onramp have come from Twitter. Like there's no Twitter, there's no Onramp without Twitter. Like I met Eric through Twitter, and the list is on and on. I had a product, Twitter, Caitlin Cook, Twitter, Justin Castelli, Twitter. It continues on. A lot of our investors, Twitter. It's crazy. So I Twitter changed my life. I just can't say it any other way. Everything that I've gotten from a professional standpoint, I've gotten from Twitter. So again, it is a dumpster fire at times. I don't want to say that, but wherever there's good, there's always evil present.
Sure.
I just think you need to realize that. But I think a couple of things that I would say is one of the things I realized, besides that I knew I was really going to start tweeting about things that I cared about. And I was tired of seeing, all right, how many arguments on PE ratios are we going to have? How many arguments on buybacks? How many arguments on, capital asset pricing models? I was like, I'm going this way, right? And I decided that I was going to be authentic. And I think that's the first thing, just being authentic, right? And if folks agree with you, great. If they don't, okay, right? You put your position out there publicly. Folks won't agree, folks will. I think the other thing was being honest and telling my story, not trying to be a master of anybody's, but telling my story and the things that brought me and the lens of why I feel the way that I feel about certain things and why I'm so passionate about them. So storytelling is a big piece of it. Tell your story. No one could tell you a story like you. And I say this all the time. Nobody in the world is better at being me when I'm uniquely me, right? I'm the best me I could be, right? And that's all I know how to be. So I just try and be that. And then the other thing is, which is not the most important, but I think it's like the anchor to all of those, is consistency. And yes, consistency, not in terms of I'm going to tweet every day on a Tuesday at 12 o'clock,
Okay.
but consistency in your messaging, consistency of what you care about and talk about. You could do that once a year, but every time you tweet, people will go, I know what I'm getting from Tyrone, right? You can guess what my tweets are going to be about, right? Literally, because there's certain financial education, no kid hungry, right? Like crypto, there'll be some more rant. Like it's just, it's consistent. I'm consistent in that. And the occasional food take that Twitter gets upset about, but Twitter just doesn't know how to eat. But so folks know what they're going to get from me. So that authenticity needs to shine through, and the consistency of always being on brand. What is it that you're really trying to get people to be a part of? And one of the things I'm most proud of is that everybody that I talk to, everyone that I meet, folks will send messages and go, because of your timeline and following you, I have a greater appreciation for gratitude and a greater appreciation of being thankful. That's all that matters to me, right? And I try and push that as much as I can, because that's the only reason I got here. My parents didn't give me and my sister much, but they would give us two things: love, and in the other pocket, they would stuff gratitude, right? Because they knew when we left the house, folks were going to have to give us stuff, right? And my mother would always say, boy, you better say thank you. And if you don't, I'm going to go behind you, I'm going to check. I'm going to say, ask them if you said thank you, right? So, to this day, that's really what I think about. And every time I hit send on a tweet, I never have to worry about any of that stuff, because if it doesn't honor my parents, I don't tweet it, right? Like I make sure that I never want to embarrass them for everything that they sacrificed for me to be here. So they are my true compliance officers, but I make sure that everything is authentic to them. And I'm like, if my mother ever really figured out Twitter, right? Like, would she read this and be disappointed? Which is also why I don't argue with trolls. I like their tweets. I give them the virtual head tap and I keep it moving. Because God forbid someone was to log in and the first thing they do is see you going back and forth with an anonymous account, right? That has a rabbit, on
Sure.
top of a, whatever. I don't want to be that. So whatever you think of me, great. It's none of my business. But you like them, let them know you see them, and you move on. But I never want anyone, especially my loved ones, to log on to Twitter and see me wasting time arguing with a troll when there's hungry children in the world. That's just stupid.
And how much time do you recommend folks spend on Twitter? Is it 5 minutes a day, or is it 50 minutes a day?
I think it depends on where you are, right? If you are early in the journey trying to build up Twitter, probably have to spend more time on it, right? There was a time where I was tweeting a lot, and I do everything with intent. The intent was to get the word out, not necessarily about followers and mentions, but more of trying to get a message across that I felt strongly about. And you'll realize that folks are aligned, they care. So I did spend a lot more, on Twitter. And as you mentioned, I'm not as active, but when I am, I try to make sure it's something important. So I think you'll start obviously higher and it'll scale down over time, unless you're Jim O'Shaughnessy and you're so unbelievably smart and wealthy that you could just sit and spend some time on Twitter. But and just enjoy yourself. And he kind of does it as this mimetic experience of just trying to, sequence behavior and, which is awesome. I love how I use it for that, but everyone uses it for something different. And I think that's the last thing. It's like, what are you using it for, right? If you're really using it to build a brand and get things out, you're going to be on it a lot. If your brand is established, if you will, and people know who you are, you can use it to promote things and people say, hey, can you retweet this or whatever? And it may be a couple tweets a day. So yeah, ideally start at 5 minutes, because if you like me, the phone stays glued right here and I can't get off it when I start tweeting. It becomes like tweet diarrhea at some point. You can't get off it. But yeah.
I find Twitter to be a great resource of information on a regular basis.
Yep. Oh, so good. So good.
And candidly, and my colleagues make fun of me, I actually prefer LinkedIn more, but that there isn't as much engagement on LinkedIn. So I definitely see why people favor Twitter. So
and
coming
LinkedIn
back,
is more civil.
Oh, much more civil
on Twitter. Yeah.
Oh my
more
goodness.
civil on LinkedIn.
So coming back to Onramp and crypto, it's been an easy ride, at least this year, for crypto, but financial advisors have to have some concerns, at this point. What are you telling them? My sense is, if you're going to jump in and advise on the accounts, you better make sure that you're going to be continuing to be engaged, right? You've got to establish a process, because you can't step in and step away and then ignore.
Yeah. My counsel is somewhat controversial, but it's also, I believe, timely. I tell advisors a couple of things. One, let it happen away from you. It's gone. It's never coming back. It moves too fast. It's gone. You're too far behind. So just let it continue to happen away from you, but have sight into it. Know the names, know the spaces, just know all of that. So when a client comes in, again, you're conversing. Second thing is, the future of the business is non-custodial plus discretion. This always gets folks fired up, right? Because the whole industry's anchored to the AUM model, right? The AUM model will soon become infected by the AUA model. There's a reason why Fidelity is telling everyone they have $11 trillion AUA. Why? Because they know, they see it. They're going to figure out a way to get paid on it. And you have a space, decentralized custody, which is going to be incredible when RIAs and financial services see the things you could do with decentralized custody, decentralized exchanges, decentralized finance, right? You have the space is being broken away. So that non-custodial plus discretion relationship is the future. So to that, I think what advisors need is data aggregation, right? Account reconciliation and consolidation, like to be able to see all of this stuff, to be able to just, again, run plans, to be able to model for clients, to be able to have conversations on if they want to bill on that held away or not. I also think planning fees are going to go through the roof in a good way. That, again, a niche model, right? niche when you're looking for it, niche when you find it, by the way. Niche business models where I'm specifically working with clients who own NFTs. I'm specifically working with clients who have outsized positions in Bitcoin. I'm specifically working with clients who gained, $1 million net worth playing games, Axie Infinity, if you will, right? Like these specific areas now, folks are going to want planning. So I think planning is going to be, robust. So if I'm a young advisor right now, I'm getting the CFP and I'm finding a really cool niche of folks to work with, and I'm going after that. The last piece, which I'm telling advisors, is it is incredibly important to realize that even though it is still happening away, and it will continue to happen away and grow, it's also still very early, right? And if you missed the first inning, if you will, right? We're reaching peak mass acceptance, just acceptance, right? I think you go 3 trillion, probably not leaving, right? Like It's $3 trillion of value and it's code. Okay. Sounds weird, uncomfortable, but I think we got to be okay with it. The other part of that is once you realize it's not going away, then you have to go, okay, how do we, as you mentioned, that ongoing education, and where do we go to continue to stay pace, right? And keep pace with it so we know that we are as aware as our clients, because this is a situation where the clients are walking into the advisor knowing more than the advisor. So if I'm a trusted fiduciary, 3 things advisors are responsible for: best execution, best advice, best interest of the client, and ongoing advice and monitoring. That best interest of the client is very interesting here. Best interest of the client, one, is for you to be conversant. Best interest of the client is not something for an advisor to hide behind. It's the best interest of the client, not you. So if you say, oh, it's too volatile, well, for who? For you or the client? That is your responsibility to find out. And the more you'll know if what the client is doing is in their best interest or not, because a lot of clients won't know. But the advisor has to know enough to say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, so wait a second, let me get this straight, right? You bought a crypto toad. Okay. Now, how'd you do that? Right? I don't know. We put some money somewhere and then someone gave me something, and that is not in the best interest of that client, right? But if the client says, bought a crypto toad, got a MetaMask, staking some ETH at Coinbase, but I realized that, I wanted to stake and also I had some extra, so bought some ETH, you go, oh, tech savvy, client gets it young, right? So you understand that. So now, I just explained to you, the advisor goes in their head, like, what the hell did they just say? A meta what, right? That is not in your best interest. It's in the client's best interest, right? On the flip side, it is in your best interest to tell the client it's not in their best interest to do that because they don't know how they even bought the crypto toad, the security, and anything else. So again, there's a lot there and a lot for advisors to realize. What I like to do is keep it for advisors their circle of competence. Be a trusted fiduciary. Answer the questions clients don't think to ask. That's our job, right? Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, do you have tax reporting statements? Have you been reporting this? Oh, you haven't. Okay. Do you know your login? Just not your private key, public key. We won't, but your login to Coinbase. Does anyone else besides you know what the hell abracadabra is or no? No. Oh, okay. And so your cost basis. Oh, you don't know your cost basis. Okay. Well, how much did you put into it? Oh, I think we put 10,000. Well, what is it now? Oh, it's 5 million. You're like, oh God, 5 million. So we got to have an estate planning conversation now, right? So I think so long as you're just going through the things you normally would with a client, you can uncover assets, you can cover a lot of pitfalls where the advisor thus can add value to their clients.
Yeah, Tyrone, you just said something, as always, just so perfectly, that you're not telling them to buy or to sell. You're just being part of the conversation.
That's it.
And by not being part of the conversation, you're actually not doing your fiduciary responsibility. So, well, that's cool. Yeah. So family is very important to you. I know that. Thanksgiving's coming up. I wanted to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. What are your plans?
So I'm in New Jersey now, where I was born and raised. So for those folks who don't know, I am a resident now of Southern California. I live in La Jolla. So it is 80 degrees there. It is 47 and cloudy here. Not happy about it. So I am definitely a big family person because that's the only reason I'm here. So, and this is actually a big week. So today is my mother's birthday. It's Monday, the 22nd, my mother's birthday. My sister's birthday is actually on Thanksgiving. And then my niece, who actually works for Onramp as well, her birthday is the 29th. So this is a very expensive week for me. Hopefully Bitcoin goes up. But just being around family, I was actually with my nephews earlier today. So folks who don't know, like my dad is one of 27 children, and then my mother's one of 12. Yeah, 27. And my mother's one of 12, and I have 50 plus cousins on my mother's side, of which I'm the youngest, and we can't keep count on my father's side. But my extended family is like a real army. My family is huge, but my immediate family is small. My mom, my dad, my sister, and then my niece. And then my niece has 3 boys. So my parents are in their early 60s and have 3 great grandchildren already. So the core of our family is really, really young. My mother had my sister at 17, and she had me at 23. So, our family is really, really young. But that's it. Just spend time with family, have some of my mother's sweet potato pie, which I love, and just kind of soak it all up. Because being out west, I'm alone. It's just me, right? All my family and friends and everything is here. So it's just me and my poor plant in my house that I forget to water sometimes. So it's funny. I was at a real quick story. I was at a friend's house. We were watching the UFC fight, and I'm like the only, I'm not married. I don't have children, and there's a bunch of married couples in there. And they're like, Tyrone, you travel so much, and building a company and asking about Onramp. And my friend's wife goes, oh, she's like, well, how are you, like, you got furniture now? I'm like, well, I got a couch. I don't really get to sit on it or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I have a plant, my poor plant, I don't get to water. So one of her friends was like, oh, and her husband was a football player at Iowa State. And I don't know if he went pro now, big dude, but she was like, when he used to travel for the games, what we would do is we would put ice cubes in the plant. And I was like, that is brilliant. The only problem is I don't have ice cubes. I was like, I have to get an ice tray so I can. They're like, oh my God, you need an intervention. I'm like, yes, I need someone to help me get the basic necessities of life. But it's startup and bachelor life together is a bad mix. But I got some ice trays now, so I'm good.
So with all these interviews, I end with 2 questions. And the first question is, going out 5 years, 10 years, what do you think is obvious that people should be thinking about today that wasn't, what will be obvious 10 years from now that isn't so obvious today about the disruption that's occurring across the crypto?
There is a tremendous wealth transfer that is going to happen in gaming, right? Gen Z is going to build so many millionaires and well-to-do folks from sitting in their parents' basements playing games that we all used to joke about. I think there's a tremendous amount of wealth that is going to be created by starting gaming companies. The composability of the gaming systems on blockchains, and just in the public markets as well, which you're seeing. With what is it, ESPO? I think I own that ETF, right, of all the gaming companies. But so I think gaming is going to create a new wave of accredited investors, if you will. 10 years from now, I think we'll look back and go, oh, it was gaming.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that kind of answers the second question, which is going to be the industry that is most disrupted beyond just financial services.
Oof. Oh man, probably entertainment because of NFTs, right? This is a massive bubble with NFTs, by the way, but that's going to pop. The great projects will remain, but I think coming out of this, entertainment creators, artists, music artists, athletes, the whole thing. They're going to be able to cut out a lot of the middlemen that's been in between them and their royalties and everything moving forward. So I think the entertainment business is very ripe for disruption. Remember Napster, right? This is going to be that times 10. So yeah, I think it's entertainment for sure.
Well, my both my kids who are at college are sport management majors, and my son loves gaming. So, hopefully he'll be as successful as you're suggesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Make sure he's playing for money.
Tyrone, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for the
Same
time.
to you. Yeah.
Keep on blocking, tackling. We look forward to all your success.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't want to go without thanking you and the folks over at Taroso being, advocates of myself, but also what we're building at Onramp, really special. You can't do this without really awesome supporters. Thank you for having me. And more importantly, I would hope everyone is listening have a wonderful holiday, and think of those who have less this holiday season, right? We see the inflation numbers, but it's, Thanksgiving is going to cost a little bit more for families. So if folks can, please give to Feeding America and NoKidHungry.org so we can make sure everyone enjoys a nice meal around family during the holidays. But I appreciate you so much for having me, as always.
Thank you, Tyrone. Be well.